Simmons Elementary School launched its Formative Assessment program in the fall of 2013. A select group of teachers volunteered to participate in the pilot program. Planning for the school-wide initiative began last spring.
Last spring, we approached a team of teachers because we wanted to include teachers across the grade levels and across disciplines. So the Simmons professional learning community has representatives from 1st through 5th grade, as well as teachers that teach in general education classrooms, math, language arts, science and social studies, as well as resource room classrooms for learning skills, learning support and life skills.
As teachers began using formative assessment in their classrooms, they would meet periodically to discuss the results of their strategies.
We had the opportunity every month to get together after school or at Patan to share the practices that each teacher was trying in his or her classroom, and an opportunity to share what went well and what didn't. So then you have that opportunity to learn from your colleagues, to get new ideas. We also, each month, the teachers observed one another in the classrooms. So they would have a partner teacher, and the commitment was once a month they would go into their partner's classroom to see the embedded formative assessment in action with the students.
A continuing goal of this program is to increase awareness and stay up to date on new formative assessment techniques while enhancing old ones.
Increasing the knowledge was building on the base that all teachers already have for how to assess student learning, but adding the latest research, the latest best practices from across our county in our work with Patan, but also across the world with the videos that they shared with us and the different ideas that came across, so that we're introduced to new ideas. We have a chance to try them out in our classrooms with our students who all have a variety of learning styles, and to see what works and what doesn't, and keep the best and move forward.
A major focus of formative assessment is to help teachers increase student achievement, which can come in a variety of forms.
A lot of the assessment for learning techniques involve collaborative group efforts. So it might be working with a partner to think, pair, share. So it's not just boosting your academic knowledge, it's also boosting your social emotional skills to work collaboratively, which we know in the 21st century is an important feature to have as you move into the job world eventually.
Now it's time to take a look how Simmons Elementary School teachers put into practice formative assessment.
With your group, you're going to go over your homework, and then on the homework board, I want you to write down any questions that you had that, as a group, were difficult for you, that you couldn't figure out together. We'll go over those.
5th grade teacher Pete Moore used a variety of formative assessment techniques in his math class. His first of 10 formative assessment techniques used in his classroom was the homework help board, where students would write on the board homework problems they need help with.
We have 2 problems that you identified as difficult problems from the homework last night. As I went around, it looked like everybody did a really good job with 7-6 with the line graphs. The other page, 8-1, is where the 2 tricky problems came from.
Formative assessment to me is a way within our everyday classroom to get a feel on the class and where they are with the objectives for that day, making sure that everyone is at the same spot by the end of the day through different techniques throughout class.
The formative assessment techniques Pete used are the homework help board, popsicle sticks, phone a friend, find the mistake, elbow partners, think, pair, share, Socrative, carousel, best composite, and exit slip.
Anytime I'm going to give a lesson to the students, I want to make sure that I have things lined up and that it's going to be, using the most of our time. So it takes time to put together the Smart Notebook lessons, but the good thing is you can use them, especially with the way we're doing the parallel block. I get to use it with 2 classes.
There's something about the location of it. Francesco, you can phone a friend and have somebody else come up. That is a reflection or a flip. Travis, tell us what you did to make it a true reflection.
We lined up like the same amount of space between the stick and the bread on the side.
Yep. The only thing that you didn't have was to have the same amount of space between the bread and the stick. We look here. What errors do you see on this? take a minute and talk with your elbow partner. If you have 3 in your group, then talk with all 3.
But it's incorrect and 5 and 6. That's not right.
Grace.
So the shading is like messed up, like it's wrong.
Okay.
And then the coordinates are 5, 6, and 6, 5.
Very good. Nicole, what do you think? You're not sure, you're allowed to phone a friend, so you don't have to be nervous.
I'd say 4.
You would say a 4, okay? Is there anybody that disagrees with Nicole? Shannon, what do you think?
I think it's a 3 because they didn't really explain a lot in how they got there.
The student's explanation of a reflection is insufficient. So they agreed with Shannon that they didn't give enough details. With your group, we're going to do the carousel. You are going to grade, we're going to rotate them clockwise. You're going to grade everyone in your groups. Now listen, I want you to put your initials next to the grade that you give so that you can support what you are giving if the person wants to know why you gave them that score. It's a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Go ahead and do that now.
It feels good if they're like, if they got a 4 or and they did it all right, but if it's like not, it feels a little bit weird because just writing down like one number and they understand why they got it from when we explain why they got the number that they got.
Remember, you have to bring me your best composite answer before you start with the netbooks.
If you had seen where we were 2-3 weeks ago with these types of questions, just to see the growth in them and the confidence with which they're answering these questions now. The first time we did questions like this, I was exhausted because there were so many questions flying at me about different things, about how to answer the questions. There were a lot of probably 2s in our responses. And as I walked around today, even before we did the best composite answer, when they were doing individual answers, I saw a lot of 4s and a few 3s mixed in. I don't think I saw any 2s or 1s. So it's very rewarding to me to see that they're giving me a better effort now. And a lot of that has to do, I think, from the techniques that we're using that we gained from the formative assessment group.
Pete certainly utilized many formative assessment techniques in his classroom, and his students give their endorsement of his implementation of it.
Mr. Moore, he makes math fun. He's done a lot of stuff this year that is unique. It is very helpful because it keeps everybody. They all want to learn in the way he teaches.
Does he have a who? Does he have a what they're doing? And does he have a where? Wow, is that a good beginning? I think that's a good score, Yasmin.
First grade teacher Karen Ealing uses multiple formative assessment techniques in her language arts class. We caught her using popsicle sticks.
I'm going to call you by sticks, and when I call you and your partner, come take one, go off, and get started. We just did some examples on the smartboard, right? So do you know what a 4, 3, 2, 1 looks like now? Yeah. Drew, you with us? Julian and Allison, you two may go. Get your things. Adios.
She also used the pre-flight checklist technique.
Did I start every sentence with an uppercase? 4, 3, 2, 1. If you don't want to do 4, 3, 2, 1, what can you do? A check or an X.
And finally, Karen used 2 stars and a wish as her last assessment strategy.
So once you do your partner's this side 4, 3, 2, 1 checklist, now you switch places and now you get graded and your partner will grade you.
The kids were working on a writing project where they were grading each other. So we had a couple formative assessment pieces. One is that they were paired up by using sticks, so it was random. The second was that they used a pre-made checklist for each other for their writing, so they could look at each other and start to learn how to score each other by their peers. And then the third formative assessment we used was 2 stars and a wish, so that they're putting their own feelings and starting to learn how to grade things and how I look to grade things as well.
Karen uses multiple formative assessment techniques frequently to help assess her young students.
We use formative assessment a lot in first grade. One of the things we use more that you didn't see today was using slates. It gives me a really fast indicator of hold up your slate for yes or no, or give me an A, B, C, D answer. It's really a quick way for me to be able to guide my instruction, to pull groups for children who don't know what they're doing, and for children who do know what they're doing, and to be able to extend them or to repeat directions for what they need, to pull different kinds of groups and give extra support when needed.
Would you give up luxuries to save the environment?
This question was posed to a group of gifted elementary school students by teacher Kelly Bizomo. Each student wrote their name on a yellow Post-it paper and stuck it on the line continuum. Placing the Post-it slip left of the center line meant that the student would not favor giving up a luxury for the environment. Right of the center line meant that they would. Kelly used popsicle sticks and the line continuum as her formative assessment strategy.
All right, I'm going to pick your stick, and then you're going to come up and get your name. And remember, you go put it on the line of continuum and you explain why, and try not to say something that somebody else has already said. Grace.
I think she uses the line continuum to kind of just see the different opinions on every kid in the class. It helps me understand because just to kind of see everyone's opinion, and then when they really talk about it and it's fun to debate and kind of just see everyone's different points of view.
What Kelly just referenced to was that after each student put their name on the blackboard, they had to give reasons why they put the Post-it note in the position they had chosen.
Another thing that we're going to start today, which we're going to implement, is this improvement evaluation partners. Throughout the invention convention process, your partner will provide you feedback on what has improved and what still needs work. What I would like you to do is make your goal center around something that you want to complete for the next class and share that goal with your partner.
So students broke up into groups and would eventually share their work with a peer. This exercise was named Introduction to Improvement Evaluation, one of the formative assessment strategies. Third grade student Adam thought about what critiquing his work might mean.
He's gonna probably give me some good feedback and some not so good feedback because of what I write is kind of in my head and what I'm thinking, so he might be thinking differently.
Now, who remembers way back when we first started exit slips and I told you what were we using exit slips for? Do you remember? In a long time we might forget, and it's nice to go back and look, but why else?
I think she uses exit slips because it really helps you set goals for yourself and think about what you can do better and what you have achieved and how you learn. You can see how fast you learn, how slow you learn.
Using just a few formative assessment techniques, Kelly feels that these strategies connect students to each other and to her.
I know that it works because I see the excitement in my class. I see them using background knowledge. Today's lesson, a lot of them used things from last year. We studied animal biology. So a lot of their kind of opinions were already formed because they did that animal biology piece. So they were tying that into the environment and inventions, and they were able to extend and stretch their thinking.
Mr. Lee Boggs is a special education teacher at Simmons Elementary School. He teaches reading, writing, and math to 4th and 5th grade students. In this video segment, Mr. Boggs keeps children actively engaged by using popsicle sticks with students' names written on them to cold call students randomly to participate and answer questions. Mr. Boggs also uses the basketball discussion technique to facilitate students' involvement and find out what they are learning. Mr. Boggs has read a text passage with the class and is conducting a follow-up discussion to review the text and answer related comprehension questions. He reads a question, then draws a popsicle stick to randomly determine who will answer first. Mr. Boggs addresses the chosen student by name, makes eye contact, then tosses the inflatable globe, the classroom basketball, to the student. That child states an answer, and the answer is marked on the smartboard. Mr. Boggs does not give any additional feedback. The first child then calls on another volunteering classmate by name, makes eye contact, and sends the catchable pass to the student. The second student may agree with their classmate's answer or disagree and give a different answer. The smartboard is marked accordingly, but Mr. Boggs still does not give further feedback. Next, the second student identifies the third child by name and with eye contact and passes the ball. The third student must agree or disagree with the answer on the floor and then explain his or hers thinking. Students may scroll through the reading passage and highlight portions of the text that support their answers to show that they are looking back for evidence in the passage. Mr. Boggs then gives feedback to confirm that the children's responses are correct and directs students to the correct answer. As additional questions are presented and discussed, the basketball discussion continues with every student being on the receiving end of a pass and required to participate before any student gets the ball again.
I went through everybody's paper, and you're going to see on your paper that you're going to see some marks on the sides. Okay, I'm going to tell you what those marks mean in a little bit. But while I'm giving you out your paper, you can just read through your papers. Then I'm going to pick 5 people. Okay, and 5 people are going to share their leprechaun stories with us.
Third grade teacher Karen Newell used popsicle sticks and peer feedback as her formative assessment strategy.
Lily to share her story. All right, Lily.
The 5 students Karen picked read their stories one by one in front of the class.
I want you to go through your own paper, okay? Anywhere I put on the side, I put a 1 or a 2. Go through, see if you can find your mistakes. Also on some people's, boys and girls, I put there was no periods or there were run-on sentences. All right, what does that mean, Philip? What does it mean if I put on the top no periods?
That means that you just went on forever and ever and ever and ever, and it would never stop.
Exactly.
There would be 1,000 words and still didn't stop.
And you just couldn't take a breath, right? You didn't even take a breath. So I'm going to give you, boys and girls, maybe like 10 minutes right now so you can go through, find your mistakes. Okay, I'll give you a dictionary. Then what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a partner. Okay, and if you didn't find all your mistakes or your partner didn't find all your mistakes, their mistakes, then you two can share and help each other out.
With the help from a dictionary and teacher, Karen Newell, students checked and corrected their spelling and grammatic errors. Next, they read their stories to other students who listened and offered their opinions about it. Peer feedback gave students a different perspective on their writing and how it impacted children their own age. 5th grade teacher Jill Green used the carousel strategy in her classroom. The following is her account of the activities in her classroom. Quote, I tried the carousel activity for my formative assessment work this month. I decided to try it before PSSAs, focusing on open-ended questions. I first had the children answer questions in a released item that I'd given them without telling them about the activity. Next, we went over the question to see what it was asking and what we needed to include in our answers. I wrote this on a chart for the class to see. They were asked to check their piece to see if they had included all of the requirements. Then I had the class get up and move to another quad to read another group's answers to compare them with their own. Some of them had appropriate answers and some did not. The next day, I assigned another open-ended question. I told the class that they would be doing the carousel activity once again. After we went over the requirements of a 4-star answer, the kids got up and rotated to another section. The pieces were noticeably longer, and it seemed that the answers were more careful and thought out. I then assigned an open-ended question for homework. We did the carousel for a 3rd time, and the difference in the answers was amazing. They were longer and more accurate, especially for a homework assignment where children often rush. I feel the process helped the kids to understand what was required of them to answer an open-ended question. It also gave them the opportunity to see how other children write and follow directions. Some kids were even remarking on how important it was to write neatly because they couldn't read them. All these factors helped to raise the students' awareness, especially during PSSA time, and hopefully increase their scores. I would definitely use the carousel activity again." Unquote. Special ed teacher Lynn Baronet used making good choices with red-green signs as her formative assessment strategy. In order for a child to self-monitor their oral response as far as tone and appropriateness, the visual happy face and sad face was established. To better define what is appropriate and what is not appropriate, the student helped others by using the red-green choice sign to address other items in the classroom, such as sitting properly, walking in line, quiet voices, etc. The student was very proud and confident when sharing the rating system and helpful in reminding others to make green choices. Even her family started using the system at home. By flashing the color as a visual cue, the student could quickly change her tone or message without numerous verbal prompts.
For language arts today, we chose to identify the various story elements of story setting and story characters in a collection of stories in an anthology. They also had to identify certain skills such as meaning words and action words in the stories that they've been reading. There is a set of 6 stories that they can select from to pull from this data from. The children were broken into groups, different color teams, and had full participation. All right, this group, you are actually going to go over to the story settings. Okay. They rotated so that I can see the various elements that I wanted them to pull from the stories and to see their team effort. Then the second total participation technique that was used was numbers heads together. And that is when they had to share their information and their responses based on the number that they were allotted for each team. Who's number 1?
Me, Gus.
Okay, who's the 2s?
G. Oscar.
Okay, nail down.
Mama. Dad's from another. Grandma.
Good job. This helped me identify which children were able to help other children and assist them with pulling that references, identifying the sight words and the elements. Other children just using their story was kind of a reinforcement of the skills, seeing that which ones were putting it at ease and more automatic and which ones needed some support with that. Formative assessment in general helps me as a teacher. 1, it shows their participation and engagement. It stimulates them to know that they're going to be held accountable for responding to the information being taught. With that, it shows me as an assessment piece or an assessment tool what needs to be to go over again, what needs to be reviewed, and what information the children are proficient in or advanced in those areas as well.
Mrs. Donna Shuba teaches math, science, and social studies at Simmons Elementary School. After teaching a lesson, Mrs. Shuba asks her class a question or questions. Each student is given an index card or sheet of paper to write the answer on and turn it in as they exit the room. She looks through the students' answers when planning the next lesson and decides whether they have understood the concepts well enough to continue. For math, she uses exit slips to create small, flexible groups for the next day. The Haber Horsham School District wishes to thank all of the teachers from Simmons Elementary School who participated in this formative assessment program.